But I'm a little insulted that I would even be questioned, not only herself, but also President Trump's ability to deal with these tariffs. But,
this
always
guy,
something in that briefing room, Jack.
Yeah, his name is Josh Boak. He's a weasel. He snapped at Caroline Leavitt, claims, I've paid tariffs and you never have. And yet you look at his career, and we pulled up his LinkedIn. He's been a reporter and a reporter and a reporter and a reporter. He worked with Bob Woodward for a while, and he doesn't even have a degree in economics. So he has no business experience whatsoever, and yet is sitting there in the room snapping at her. Obviously a huge breach of decorum of the White House. She honored him with the ability, and again, the privilege. We know the AP has had some issues with their privileges in the White House recently. This was how he responded with this emotional. I mean, he sounded hysterical. He actually sounded like he was getting hysterical when he was asking the question. Have you been able to check on him? Is he okay? Does he need a doctor?
Let me check back there. I'll dip back in the briefing room. There was actually, Jack, a couple reporters that I felt like their questions were a little bit condescending in terms of whether or not these tariffs are best. Jack, I just want to know, when are they going to ask questions of where the media has been the last 4 years when inflation was double digit across the board?
So many simple questions. Brett, we're coming up on a hard break. Can I hold you over for a minute just to finish this off? We're just up against this hard break. All right, guys, let's take the break. We'll go right back to Brian here, Human Events Daily, live at the White House.
America First truly means.
Welcome to the second American Revolution.
All right, Jack Posobiec back live here at Human Events Daily. Let's go right back to the White House where we're at. We want to bring in now the Charlie Kirk Hour 3 Salem Radio Network. Brian Glenn, we were cut off by the break on the last segment there. You were just giving us your final recap of Caroline Leavitt's couple of sparks flying with the AP reporter there regarding that his personal behavior at the end, or at least during this press conference.
Yeah, and Jack, he wasn't alone. I really think this tariff issue has really sparked a lot of emotion from the reporters in this room. Quite frankly, it seems like they're more concerned.
Why is this
about
issue
other
so
countries.
personal?
I don't know. I don't know, Jack, but when you think about this, I want to ask them, where were they the last 4 years when we saw every consumable good possible go in double-digit inflation? Did they ask the Biden administration what they were doing to fix it? But all of a sudden, President Trump has a tariff plan which will ultimately work out for this country. They want to sit there and vilify it. I have no idea, Jack. It doesn't make sense. But remind you, this is the overly educated, affluent, and bored media of D.C., and that's just what they do.
Well, I think that's exactly right, Brian. Appreciate you being there. Glad the weather's a little bit nicer than the last couple of rained out hits that you've had there at the White House. So I think you're really roughing it today. What's it, like 70 out? Amazing stuff.
Yes,
Thank you, man.
70 and sunny. Yeah. Thank you.
70 and sunny. It's rough. It's rough, but you've got your linens on. It's wonderful. So, folks, I want you to imagine what would happen if Doge opened the doors to Fort Knox and there wasn't the reported 147.3 million troy ounces of gold inside. Even if it is mostly there, the consequences for the market would be astronomical. Given the waste, fraud, and abuse Doge has found so far, does the idea sound far-fetched to you? Here is something else. J.P. Morgan Chase just moved $4 billion worth of gold to New York. They're not guessing. They know what's coming. The U.S. relies heavily on Canada and Mexico for gold and silver. And once these tariffs kick in, the price of gold will hit new records. This is your moment. If you have money in stocks, a 401k or IRA, now is the time to move into gold and silver before the rush. And plus, we all saw what just happened with the market this week. Look, I partner with Allegiance Gold because they share my values: honesty, transparency, real patriotism. They're here to make sure you make the best decision for your future. Go to protectwithposo.com now and get up 3 years of free storage when you open your gold IRA. Don't wait. Gold will never be this cheap again. Go to protectwithposo.com. That's protectwithposo.com. Let's get Mike Benz in here now, the executive director at the Foundation for Freedom Online. Benz, look, when I look around the horn in terms of foreign policy and even some of this domestic cutting that's going on between Doge, USAID, Ukraine, Syria, pulling the chocks on all this stuff, it seems to me what President Trump and the new administration are doing, Benz, are they committing blobicide?
Premeditated conspiracy to commit blobicide.
First degree blobicide
in the court of the foreign policy establishment. But it's what's best for the American people. Frankly, this should be a totally bipartisan issue. It was Ben Rhodes, the Deputy National Security Advisor for President Obama, who coined the phrase the blob to describe the foreign policy establishment, because the Obama administration felt like they could not shift course from what the blob wanted to do, and they felt they were overpowered by it. But when you actually come to cut the tentacles of it, you find the same Obama blob, the Bush blob. It's all one big blob, and we ain't in it as the American people. But that is, it's facing its first real moment of accountability, maybe in the history of its creation.
Well, and so step back. Let's dial back a little bit, because it's been these projects like Syria, which is now on the chopping block as that country descends into absolute blood chaos, as we've called it here on the show. Then you've got Rubio. He's down meeting with the Ukrainians in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia today, although not meeting with President Zelensky, who is also there. Zelensky, of course, reneging on the deal. There's so much of the blob. Let me ask you to come at it this way. Why is it that so much of blob infrastructure is tied in foreign projects like this?
Well, it's because that's where the money is, and that's where the resources are. And there's this. I come back to the Milton Friedman video about the pencil, and he ties it back to the magic of the free market. No one in America can create a pencil because the gum comes from trees in Malaysia, and the graphite comes from mines in South America. And that's the same thing for every product. Everything that we source requires, cobalt from Congo, or lithium from Argentina, or titanium from Ukraine, or uranium from the Sahel in Africa. So every big multinational corporation sources its critical resources from abroad. They now, since the 1990s, primarily do have their labor forces abroad. This is the cheap labor that Trump is trying to onshore manufacturing so that America becomes a heartland manufacturing center again. We've seen some of the success of that, with hundreds of billions of dollars pouring in from places like Japan and Saudi Arabia and other countries to try to build their plants or their manufacturing in Arizona or in Ohio. But the fact is you have foreign markets. This is actually it's in USAID's charter. If you listen closely with ears to hear it, you will hear Senator Chris Murphy and other USAID Spocks say this, that USAID, part of its purpose is to secure export markets for foreign goods. There's only 300 million people here in the U.S. It's a big world out there. There's 8 billion customers out globally. And so you have the business interests.
Wait. So
globally.
this almost sounds like this. I'm pulling a Bannon right there, right? Wait. Hold on. This almost sounds like what you're talking about in terms of what President Trump is doing with trade and restructuring the global system for the trade arrangement to actually benefit the American people, as opposed to the American empire. You're also saying that that's what USAID was doing. They were expanding the American empire because the American empire was predicated on this idea of global trade. And I think people keep separating these issues, but what you're saying is they're actually intrinsically connected, and that's why President Trump is focused on them so directly here in his first 50 days in office.
They're completely interconnected. They fit like a glove. I mean, that is what part and parcel of the same beast. And the fact is, if you are going to get rid of the soft power potential of something like USAID, you're going to need to offset it by some other restructuring that benefits American influence in turn. And I think that's the purpose of these tariffs, which is that if companies manufacture within the United States, then they don't get tariffed sending their goods here because they're already here. And so this is why I think you see hundreds of billions of dollars pouring in, so that companies, if they have foreign cars, they're going to manufacture them in Ohio. If they have, foreign trinkets, or foreign chips, they're going to manufacture them in Arizona. And this creates jobs for the Americans who live here, the American homeland. This is actually what foreign countries were doing to induce U.S. multinational corporations. This is how you have places like Microsoft and others who primarily have, their advanced workforce in China or in other foreign countries for cheap labor and then favorable tax or regulatory treatment. Well, we're now doing that here, which is long overdue. Frankly, this should have been done 30 years ago. This was the sort of thing that America dominated the 20th century with its, as Stephen Miller talks about, its manufacturing miracle in the heartland, which then was carved up and became the Rust Belt after all the multinational corporations, U.S. multinational corporations, saw that it was cheaper to simply go abroad for their labor force and to have their commercial business oriented towards the great outside.
This is key. This is so key. We're coming up on a hard break, Ben. Can we hold you over? Can you do one more segment with us? Because people are seeing all the chaos right now in the stock market, but what you're doing is unpacking the actual system we've been living under and what President Trump is attempting to do to correct it. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Human Events Daily.
this Real America's Voice news break, I'm Terrence Bates. Happening today, House Republicans are set to vote on a budget plan that would keep the government funded through September. Earlier today, the House GOP conference met to try and tie up any loose ends before this afternoon's vote. Speaker Mike Johnson can only afford one Republican defection, and Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie is already on record saying that he is a no vote. While Johnson says he expects to get the continuing resolution over the finish line today, here's what happens if and when that measure does in fact pass.
We've got the current resolution that we're going to pass, I hope today, that will extend the 2025 budget until the end of September under current spending levels. And then we have the 2026 budget. We're expecting that from the president in the next month or two, and appropriations is already looking at the discretionary spending, which is only about 25% of what we spend in America. Once we get that top line number from the president, that's agreed on with the four corners of the House and Senate, that will go to the Appropriations Committee. And like last year, I just talked with Tom Cole in his office last night, the chair of Appropriations, we will get all 12 appropriation bills out of committee.
President Trump reportedly called Republican lawmakers who were on the fence about the measure on Monday to rally their support. Congressman Massie, who says he'll vote no, is already being threatened with the primary challenge. Well, the U.S. trade war with Canada is intensifying as President Trump says he plans to double tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum imports. Right now, those two goods are being taxed at a 25% clip, but the commander-in-chief is ready to raise that number to 50%. The increase is set to take effect tomorrow and comes in response to price increases on electricity sold to the United States from the provincial government of Ontario and Canada. The move comes as President Trump is scheduled to address the Business Roundtable quarterly meeting this afternoon. His remarks will likely include his tariff plan. That's a quick check of your headlines. I'm Terrence Bates.
Today, they talk about influencers. These are influencers, and they're friends of mine. Jack Posobiec. Where's Jack? Jack, he's done a great job.
All right, folks, we're back. Jack Posobiec here live, Washington, D.C. Want to welcome in Hour 3, Charlie Kirk, Salem Radio Network, and his audience. We're on with Mike Benz, the executive director of the Foundation for Freedom Online. Benz, we're talking about how President Trump, through his actions, people are looking at the military side and the trade side as if they're separate, but in fact, they're interconnected and intrinsically connected. These are things whereby the global empire is attempting to expand its markets, but at the same time also expand its manufacturing centers and its resources centers, as well as its commodity centers. President Trump is turning all of that on its head, and that's why the globalists are lashing out. I was reading before, and I was even planning to say, people are talking, why is it Canada, Mexico, and China that are getting hit with all of the tariffs directly right out the gate? Well, because that's where we outsourced our manufacturing to throughout the late 80s and early 1990s. That's the underpinning. That's the global factory for China, the global factory of the world, and then Canada, Mexico are the factories of the United States. By bringing the factories back, yes, this will actually contract the global empire, and that's what Wall Street and all of the multinationals are responding to, plus why you're getting all of these globalist responses. Benz, why is President Trump doing all this?
Well, it will consolidate it and make it happier and healthier. See, we have to, you can almost think of it as the reverse of the post 9/11 Bush edict that, we need to get the terrorists there so that they don't come here. There's sort of the inverse of that going on, which is that we want people to invest here so we don't need to go out and invest there. So take, for example, Ukraine. After the 2014 Crimea and referendum and the Donbass breakaway, George Soros said that he would commit $1 billion in investments in Ukraine. The U.S.-Ukraine Chamber of Commerce has all these multinational corporations, and they're investing in Ukraine. And that's only possible if the Pentagon spends hundreds of billions of dollars to win a war there. That's only possible if the State Department, USAID, and the National Endowment for Democracy and the NGOplex spends another tens of billions of dollars of U.S. taxpayer money over there. Well, what would happen if we had manufacturing here in the U.S. and the investment was made here in the U.S. to be able to produce the kind of products? This is actually happening right now with the oil and gas story in Europe, including in Ukraine and all the shale resources that Ukraine has in the Black Sea and in the Donbass. We see Trump doing drill, baby, drill here in the U.S. and trying to open up new drilling opportunities in Alaska. The more we do here, the less we need to spend expensively abroad. You know, we're a country that's in
Ben,
a lot of debt.
Just a quick note on that. You know, people overlook the fact all the time that it wasn't just Ukrainian oligarchs that had Hunter Biden on the board of their company. It was Ukrainian oil and gas oligarchs that had Hunter Biden on the board. That's what started all of this way back, almost a decade ago. It was always about oil and gas, and just so many people drove right past that because they wanted to say Biden, Biden, Biden.
Right. And if you remember, Biden did a pause of U.S. LNG exports. Biden blocked the key pipelines from being able to be constructed or finished here in the U.S. And so you had oil and gas companies who felt forced to rush into foreign markets, which happened to, of course, personally profit the first family and support the Biden White House's push of expansionism into foreign countries, because now they had all these big oil and gas investors who had no choice but to support that because they were unable to do so here at home. Trump is basically doing the inverse of that. We don't need to spend hundreds of billions of dollars of taxpayer money to secure these foreign markets or to build up a military force posture on the far reaches of the globe if we can secure investments at home. And so this is the function of the tariffs and the trade war. You know, you have this situation, for example, with Canada and Mexico, who provide something like 76 to 78% of their exports to U.S. markets, whereas the U.S. only exports about 2% of its goods to Mexico and Canada. And so you have this major trade imbalance. We want everything to be done here because that means it's more jobs for Americans. That's what allows people to buy houses. That's what allows people to afford college.
And that's what the American dream is all about. Benz, where can people go to follow you, brother?
Follow me on X at Mike Benz Cyber.
Mike Benz Cyber. Nobody puts it together like Benz. You know, you might be a deep sea diver, but you might get the Benz. I don't know. Something like that. We'll be right back. Human Events Daily, Salem Radio Network, Real America's Voice.
Terrence Bates here with your Real America's Voice news break. Thanks so much for being here with us. House Republicans are set to vote on a budget plan that would keep the government funded through September. Earlier today, the House GOP conference met to try and tie up any loose ends before this afternoon's vote. Speaker Mike Johnson can only afford one Republican defection, though, and Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie is already on the record saying he is a no vote. While Johnson says he expects to get the continuing resolution over the finish line, here's what would happen next if and when this measure does pass.
We've got the current resolution that we're going to pass, I hope today, that will extend the 2025 budget until the end of September under current spending levels. And then we have the 2026 budget. We're expecting that from the president in the next month or two, and appropriations is already looking at the discretionary spending, which is only about 25% of what we spend in America. Once we get that top line number from the president, that's agreed on with the four corners of the House and Senate, that will go to the Appropriations Committee. And like last year, I just talked with Tom Cole in his office last night, the chair of Appropriations, we will get all 12 appropriation bills out of committee.
President Trump reportedly called Republican lawmakers who were on the fence about the measure Monday to rally their support. Congressman Massie, who says he'll vote no, is already being threatened with a primary challenge. U.S. and Ukrainian officials are hoping the second time will be the charm as they are meeting in Saudi Arabia for the first time since that infamous Oval Office showdown between President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky. Zelensky is under intense pressure to get back in the good graces of the Trump administration amid the prospect of a Trump-brokered peace deal for the war with Russia. There also is the issue of a deal for the U.S. to get Ukrainian minerals in return for about $65 billion in military aid. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz are meeting with those Ukrainian officials in Saudi Arabia. Zelensky reportedly will not be part of the talks. That's a quick check of your headlines.
And Jack, where's Jack? Where's Jack? Where is he? Jack, I want to see you. Great job, Jack. Thank you. What a job you do. You know, we have an incredible thing. We're always talking about the fake news and the bad, but we have guys, and these are the guys who should be getting Pulitzers.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec back here live, Human Events Daily, Washington, D.C. I want to ask you a quick question. Did you know that Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the United States with thousands of different plants and over 2 million happy customers? They have all the plants your yard needs, like fruit trees, privacy trees, flowering trees, shrubs, and so much more. Whatever plants you're interested in, Fast Growing Trees has you covered. Find the perfect fit for your climate and space. Fast Growing Trees makes it easy to get your dream yard. Order online and get your plants delivered directly to your door in just a few days without ever leaving home. Their Alive and Thrive guarantee ensures your plants arrive happy and healthy. Plus, get support from trained plant experts on call to help you plan your landscape, choose the right plants, and learn how to care for them. Look, we need these things. We actually had some storm damage at the house over the past couple of weeks. We have some trees down. That's something that I got to get Kev Poso involved with. I've shown him it, but he's been a little busy. We'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, we had some storm damage. Might have to replace some trees, so going to have to be giving Fast Growing Trees a call. And so this spring, they have the best deals for your yard, up to half off on select plants and other deals. And if you're part of the Human Events audience, you get 15% off their free purchase when using promo code POSO at checkout. That's an additional 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using promo code POSO at checkout. fastgrowingtrees.com, promo code POSO. Now is the perfect time to plant. Use promo code POSO to save today. The order is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. I want to go live now to Kevin Posobiec, who is at the Basilica of the Immaculate Conception, the National Shrine there down in Washington, D.C. He's covering a rally in D.C. that's calling for a RICO investigation into the U.S. College of College of Bishops, the Conference of Bishops, as an advocating for sex abuse victims. Kevin, tell me what's going on and who you're with.
Okay, great to be with you again, Jack. Yes, we're down at the National Shrine, not the National Cathedral where you and I were about a month or so ago.
No, we don't need to talk about that.
So we have a certain Cardinal McElroy being installed just today, just inside, who will be giving his own homily very shortly. And I'm here with a dignified gentleman who has much more on the topic at hand. And we believe it's a bit of a deep church installation here. You're talking about planting trees. This is some kind of plant for sure. And yeah, let me introduce him now. His name is Michael Hitchborn from the Lepanto Institute. He's the president, and he was out front with us with signs, and we were praying rosary earlier. We'll probably do another one again soon here. But Michael, please introduce yourself. Let us know.
Yeah, so one of the reasons that we're here is that Cardinal McElroy is part of a large cabal of bishops and cardinals who are trying desperately to undermine the church's teaching and to work closely with the deep state. When you look at the way certain bishops were involved in the cover-ups, the rape cover-ups of children, we know that Cardinal McElroy helped to cover up the rape of a young woman named Rachel Mastrogiacomo, who was here with us today. She was ritually, satanically abused, and Cardinal McElroy had a hand in covering up her abuse. But there's so much more to the story, because Cardinal McElroy is also a part of the Association of U.S. Catholic Priests, which is it's basically the remnants of Call to Action. They're a bunch of dissident priests working to undermine the authentic moral and theological teachings of the church. And you also have the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops intimately involved with USAID and the whole border situation, taking in hundreds of millions of dollars to help illegal aliens come in across the border. So when you start looking into the whole problem, you realize there's got to be something to investigate, someone to investigate these problems and possibly look into RICO.
That's right, Jack. We want to know where all this money's going. That's why we're calling on J.D. Vance. We highlighted Doge, right, and what they're doing with USAID. So we want to know, where are all these migrant children going? Why aren't there any orphanages that you hear about, like in the recent Mother Cabrini movie? Where are the orphanages? Why are there 300,000 missing children? That's what we want to know. That's why we're calling on an investigation.
So, Kev, let's walk me through some more of this. Tell me some more about what's going on at the protest. What are the specifics on the USCCB, this Conference of Catholic Bishops? We know that they got into it with J.D. Vance. What is the protest calling for specifically today?
Well, the protesters are calling for a RICO investigation. They're asking J.D. Vance to start or initiate a RICO investigation into the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. We know that the USCCB received $130 million to relocate migrants and refugees in the United States. 30 million of that went to relocating minors and unaccompanied children. And the question that we have is, where was the vetting with regard to these underage children? We know that many of them were coming across the border with nothing but a little card that said, here's the phone number for the contact that you need to relocate me with. Where's the follow-up? We know there are 300,000 children that went missing. And what's interesting is that when the USCCB takes $30 million to relocate underage children, but then none of the money went to stopping trafficking, we have to ask the question, is this really the entity that paid out $5 billion in sex abuse settlements? Is this really the entity that should be receiving that money to relocate these children?
Tell me more about what was the letter or the part of the Vatican II that you were saying in 1965? How did this all start when the church was being undermined by these like subtle governmental funding issues?
In the Second Vatican Council, one of the last documents that was published is called Perfecta Caritatis, that had everything to do with upending religious institutes. You have the religious orders were told that they needed to rewrite their constitutions, rewrite their prayer books. They had to start incorporating social justice into their communities, including cloisters had to start being more social justice minded. But what happened as a result of this is that you had nuns doffing their habits, you had priests parading in pro-homosexual parades, and after a while, the charities that had been provided by the church free of charge were handed over to the federal government, and so the USCCB started lobbying the government to increase their welfare programs, to increase all of these for-profit industrial organizations, which were making billions of dollars now in the name of helping the poor, where these services cost very little when it was being done by religious institutes.
Right, so the point of the protest... yeah, go ahead.
Oh no! So the point of the protest is that essentially what this and when people understand this, zoom out a little bit. What you've got here are not people who are attacking them for being Catholic, but actually what it is, the point of the protest is that these leaders, these people who claim to be acting in the names of practicing Catholics, Kev, like you and me, that they're actually going up there, they're taking money from the collection plate, and they're sending it to all these social justice programs. They're propping up people like McElroy that are covering up sex crimes, and they're also taking the money and they're using it to participate in these operations that enable and further and fuel illegal alien invasion into the United States, many of which involves children. This is us saying, look, if we're going to be, the Catholic Poso bros, then we have to call out our own church before anyone else does. We have to clean up our own house, and we are more than willing to do so, and we are happy to do so. That's what this is about.
That's right, Jack. And that's almost verbatim what J.D. Vance was suggesting, that we should clean up our own financial house. And this is more than just, I carry the basket at my own church. This is more than, it's a very trusted position. This is more than just like slipping a 20 in your own pocket out of the basket. This is on a macro level here that we're seeing the waste, fraud, and abuse. And the Biden administration was very lax on border policy to begin with, people coming over, and that's where a lot of the Catholic Charities scandals you've heard about in Texas, for instance, came to be. And so there's just not a lot of accountability being held towards Catholic Charity, USCCB, like all the funding that we're giving them, like where are the results? We give them all this money and then children disappear.
Well, and one of the things most people don't understand is that the Catholic Relief Services has a quid pro quo relationship with USAID.
Exactly.
CRS and the USCCB would regularly go to Capitol Hill. They would lobby Capitol Hill to increase funding for USAID, PEPFAR, the Global Fund, and a bunch of other institutes that are, by the way, putting money towards abortion, contraception, and just all the worst stuff and things that are completely against church teaching. At the same time, CRS is getting the prime cut of USAID funds. They were among the top of the organizations that were getting funding from USAID.
And so when it comes down to it, so what you're saying is that this isn't a principled response that they're having with J.D. Vance and others. It's about money. It actually is about the funding, isn't it?
It absolutely is. The USAID and CRS relationship is so deep that when I started investigating CRS and PEPFAR back in 2014, PEPFAR actually erased part of the record that said that CRS was promoting a program that was promoting contraception. They erased that when they were caught. And then the USCCB used that as a letter to say, no, see, that was all a big mistake. They're in cahoots. There's a collusion here between the deep state and the deep church. And our institute is working very hard to try and cut that tie.
Well, and that's why we support the Lepanto Institute so much here on Human Events Daily. Hey, Kev, we got about a minute left, but I want to remind people that this is all about saving the children. So I was wondering if you could do with me real quick here on the program, St. Michael the Archangel.
Defend us in battle.
Be our
protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host,
By the power of God,
cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits, prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Amen.
You know, I thought you were going to rosary check me, but we're well prepared today.
I was rosary checking you. Where you at? Where you at on that rosary check, Kev?
Oh, I got you.
What about Hitchborn? You got to check Hitchborn now, too.
Hey.
All right. Oh, yeah. Rosary check is up. Rosary check. We're all good here. We're all good. That's right. Folks are saying, oh, did you have your rosary out, Poso, just because you're doing the Catholic one today? No, folks, it's always here. I'm always armed. I'm always ready to do battle with the forces of Satan. Be right back here. Human Events Daily continues.
has talked a lot about tariffs. He's talked about applying them for several different reasons. And I think a lot of the world was hoping that this would mostly be a negotiating tactic where he'd threaten things, people would make some kind of deal, and then the threat of tariffs would go away. I think some of this is suggesting that the tariffs indeed are really seen as potentially more of a structural change for the way Trump wants the economy to work, and that is going to be more of a long-term effect with an adjustment period.
There are rising worries about a slowdown. You've got the Atlanta Federal Reserve saying we're going to have a contraction in the first quarter. Look, I know that you inherited a mess, and you said that the other night.
I've only been here.
But are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America. That's a big thing. And there are always periods of, it takes a little time. It takes a little time. But I don't.
When I'm working long hours, I'm always listening to Human Events with Jack Posobiec.
All right, Jack Posobiec, here we are back live, Human Events Daily. And folks, what President Trump is saying there is so important. I get that everyone's talking about the stock market today, and he's talking about, whoa, does this mean we're going to a recession? Does this mean everything's falling apart? Does this mean everything's going wild and crazy? The economy's going down? Hold on a second. Just pump the brakes a second, okay, folks? Number one, guy's been on the job for 51 days. 51 days. So when you look at something like this, you have to say, all right, he's clearly operating off of some sheet of music. And he's had 4 years to think about, and really in some ways 34 years to think about all of the things that he's wanted to do as president. And so here's what it all comes down to. After the global financial crisis, 2008, and then again in COVID, we had this massive money printer. We had this massive injection of credit into the economy. But folks, the days of endless spending are over. What Trump is doing is he's stepping up and turning off the money machine. That means no more printing cash like it's monopoly money, no more pretending the bill won't come due. Actually, it turns out it is coming due. The globalist model, which is debt trap slavery for everyone out there, is crumbling for the lower 90% of people. It's not sustainable for you, for me, for American families, for the middle class, for working class. We are running on fumes, and the tank is running dry. So you got to talk straight. Look, the stock market is going down, and people are wringing their hands. They're crying, where's our wealth? Where's our wealth? No. Corporate wealth is not the whole picture. We are talking about bloated corporations, a smug banking cartel, and speculators riding high on greed. But now the mask is off. Look, broader commodities, I get it. They're jittery. Everything's jittery out there. The currency market is an absolute mess. Inflation's gnawing at our wallets. Unemployment's not just a statistic. It's facing the crowd. But that's the real pulse of the economy, and it was flatlining for years under Biden, and the media never talked about it. So Trump has just gotten to the helm, and he is steering us into a different place. It's about manufacturing, a place that people don't even remember. People don't even remember what America was like when it produced things, when we made our own stuff, and picture it. Factories humming, towns thriving, not just shipping containers piling up with junk from halfway around the world. That's what President Trump promised, bringing it back home. You remember 2020 when you couldn't get your toilet paper or vitamins or anything? And we all nodded and we said, yeah, self-sufficiency makes sense. But here's the catch. It's not instantaneous. It takes time, and it's not free. Plus, it's not just manufacturing. Fixing the immigration mess, building a system that's fair, secure, and works, getting us energy independent. Those are big. Those are huge moves, bold moves. Imagine, think about it, borders that actually mean something, and a gas pump that's humming with what? American oil, not just begging OPEC for scraps. Those are the fixes that will bear fruit, and you can't even wrap your heads around it. Jobs, security, power in our own hands. It's like planting a tree. You don't get the shade tomorrow. It takes time, and that is the test that we're facing. Now, we know that Americans don't like time. I get it. We're not wired for patience, but people are tied into, well, how are we trained? What are we conditioned to do? Live off of debt. Just get another credit card, right? Just get another credit card. Just sign up again for another credit card. Swipe the card. Figure it out later, right? Just swipe the card. Get it. You now. Me. Gimme. Figure it out later. That's the trap, and someone has to stop the bleeding. Someone has to be the grown-up in the room. Someone has to be daddy. Someone has to grab the teenager's credit card, cut it in half, and say, it's time to live within your means. And that's where we're at. I get it. It's tough love. It stings. But folks would be getting ripped off for years, decades even. And your labor as an American, it can have real value again. Actual value. I get it that there is going to be transitory pain. But is it going to last forever? No, absolutely not. Imagine this. Working a job that doesn't just put food back on your table, but pumping life back into your community. Because the wealth flows where it belongs, not to some faceless bank raking in 30% interest on a loan for cheap garbage that breaks in a month. That's the America we fought for, not the house of cards built on borrowed time and basically leveraging our children's future. So yes, the money machine is getting shut down, and it's going to hurt before it heals. Guess what? That's how it goes. Pressure makes diamonds. But when we come out the other side, self-sufficient, strong, building things that last, that's when we'll see what America's really made of. So hang in there, folks. We understand that it might be a little bit of a bumpy ride, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that light is shining red, white, and blue, and will shine on to the path of glory. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission to lay a short.